Hello, my name is Adrienne Herrenbruck. I am the PI, I guess, for this research project, and I just wanted to cover a few of the things that we found in 2022. We're really excited about this new line of research that we're working on. I'm working with an alum, which has been really fun, and as well as collaborating with some external colleagues at other institutes. So it's been a really fun project, and it's a preliminary one, but we're really excited about what we found, and we're excited to look at new variables as we move forward. So I just wanted to walk you through some of the things that we learned over the course of this first study, and kind of some of the questions that we hope to answer in the future. I'm going to be doing the bulk of the presentation, but for the next slide, I've invited AJ, who is our alum, to explain a little bit about intermittent hypoxic breathing and the benefits. So when we get to that slide, she'll discuss that. Overall, our topic is the impact of intermittent hypoxic breathing. Now, we're looking specifically, this initial study, we looked specifically at body composition, some strength measures, and we did look in the overweight and obese population for females. So we are exploring different variables here, but the therapy that we're looking at is intermittent hypoxic breathing. There's many reasons that this could be a promising therapeutic tool to use for, honestly, the general population. We know there's many benefits of altitude training and even using hypoxic training masks or chambers, but there's not a lot of access to that. So we're just trying to find, there's been some studies that have shown that we can alter our breathing patterns and elicit the same physiological response. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, and that's where this preliminary, I should say, study came from. So I'm going to let AJ explain a little bit just generally, like some of the adaptations that we see and some of the benefits of intermittent hypoxic breathing.
There are a cornucopia of benefits of hypoxic strength and cardio training. What was once known as a modality mostly only used by elite athletes to improve their endurance via red blood cell production is now strongly supported by research for anti-aging, including enhancement of several areas, including cardiovascular, cognition, including Alzheimer's, blood glucose, body composition, bone density, asthma, and much, much more. While the general population could highly benefit from utilizing altitude or hypoxic training, it is limited in its availability because of location, having to go to the mountains, or cost. Hypoxic chambers and machines are very, very expensive. Even though normal baric hypoxia is much more affordable than hypobaric pressurized units that cost millions of dollars, it is still unfeasible for most to consider this as an option. Additionally, this equipment can be difficult to use and requires a trained professional in this area to assist with the tools and the programming. This is where our research gets really, really exciting, because we are using intermittent hypoxic breathing effectively to reduce safely the blood oxygen to levels that are seen in altitude training. We are seeing that these blood oxygen levels can be sustained during exercise, mimicking altitude training. And here's where it gets even more exciting. For this methodology, it's very simple. You do not need a trained professional at home with you. It's free and it's highly available. You don't have to go to a mountain. You can just stay in your home. We are so incredibly excited to continue our pursuits in this area of research. Seeing that we can reduce those blood oxygen levels to areas where we can increase the transcription factor of hypoxia inducible factor to send the signals to our body to upregulate the factors that need to be upregulated to see positive adaptations in the body, well, this is really exciting. And previous research has shown that breath control, slowing the exhalation down, and also performing breath retentions is successful in increasing factors that are also increased at altitude. We are super excited to continue working on the effects of hypoxic breathing during exercise, as it is such a highly practical modality that could be utilized by many, many people around the world.
Okay, so that's a great explanation. She covered a lot there, so we're going to get into it a little bit more with the next slide here. So basically, intermittent hypoxic training has been shown to be highly effective in improving body composition compared to those that are just exercising in a normoxic environment or just have free access to oxygen. Now, what we're talking about when we're talking about hypoxic, normoxia, those kinds of things is when you look at blood oxygen levels, a normal reading would be somewhere like 98, 99% saturated. That means that your hemoglobin is saturated with oxygen. Now, when we use this hypoxic training, your hemoglobin is less saturated with oxygen. And so we may get down into the 80s, even the 70s when you go up into altitude. This is one of the things that happens. When that occurs, it triggers different transcription factors to upregulate gene expression of hypoxic factors that then lead to downstream effects and adaptations in the body. So we've long known the benefits of training in altitude. In fact, goes back to when the Olympics were in Mexico at altitude. There were many studies done there on the impact of altitude training on these athletes and the benefits or maybe the detriments of people who didn't train in those environments. So we can see a lot of benefits here. And what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, how can we mimic those results but make it available for everyone, because there's lots of really cool benefits that have been shown over the years. So what we do, slow breathing with an extended exhale, we get low lung volume, and then we have strategic breath holds afterwards. So we retain our breath after that slow exhalation, slow breathing. That induces intermittent hypoxia and lowers that blood oxygen concentration. And this just, like I said, offers this potential free, convenient method of getting this hypoxic benefit while not having to go to Colorado. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That would be nice, but we can't always go work out there. So then what we're looking at is the use of intermittent hypoxic breathing. So this technique that we're using, it has the ability to lower SpO2 levels that are consistent with hypoxia in athletic populations. But there is a gap in the literature looking at non-athletic populations, just the average, either healthy or maybe even disease prone individuals. So we're really excited to kind of dive into the average adult population and fortunately or unfortunately, unfortunately in our eyes, that generally looks like someone who is overweight, and some of those clientele can also be obese. So we are looking at that overweight and obese population and seeing if we can utilize this technique to induce hypoxia, leading to some of these highly desirable benefits. So our research question, this is a very long research question for a preliminary study, but we wanted to try to kind of see, okay, what is it that we're really asking? So does an extended exhale of 8 to 10 seconds, and I'm going to show you an example. We created videos for each of our participants to watch so that we make sure that they understand how to do this, because we are doing this at a distance. We are the participants are all over the place, and we're not meeting and doing this together. So we really had to have high level of training them, making sure that they're able to reach these hypoxic levels. So extended exhale of 8 to 10 seconds, and then we have forced exhalations and breath holds. So there's a few different types of exhalations. Again, I'll show you an example of our video here in a second. And then after those forced exhalations, you literally hold your breath. You just retain your breath. This, again, holds that low lung level of oxygen and gets you into that hypoxic state, bringing down your blood oxygen concentration. So if we do that breathing pattern and use it with a functional movement or workout program, can we see greater improvements in some of these health markers than if we don't use the hypoxic breathing? So really the two main goals that we wanted to see here is, the main goal is, are we able to mimic hypoxic states with this breathing technique that we're using? And then are there some positive results of mimicking that hypoxic state? Specifically here, we looked at body composition and some strength markers, and we'll get into what we found. So what our methods were, we did a 12-week study. There were functional strength training workouts that each participant performed 4 times a week. These were guided workouts. And they did the same workout each week. So they had a different workout each week, but they performed that same workout 4 times to make sure that they were able to get good at the exercises and perform them properly. And we measured the blood oxygen content levels in the second 2 workouts of the week so that they were already well versed in the workout and could perform those properly. The experimental group performed voluntary 8-second exhalations followed by breath retention, and that helped bring down their oxygen levels. And we did see that, spoiler alert, so we're excited about that. And then we measured blood oxygen levels during each workout using pulse oximeters, just a very simple method there. Now, what we did pre and post, we measured body composition, waist circumference, skeletal muscle strength. We also measured resting metabolic rate because there's some thought there that maybe this is influencing resting metabolic rate, which might be what is leading to an improvement in body composition overall. So I'm going to play this quick video here. Now, this is AJ. This is our alum. She was in front of the camera for all of these videos explaining these processes. So she did an amazing job. And I'm just going to show you an example just so we can kind of wrap our head around what it is that we're talking about.
Workout. Okay, so let's take it from the zip up activation. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 1, inhale 2, and blow. Hiss. Shish. Loud shish. Double. Inhale 1, 2, blow. Double. Inhale. Last 1, 2, blow. Now we're holding. Excellent. Okay, so that was, okay. So actually I did get down to 80.
All right, so that's an example of a training video that we used with our participants to show them those specific exhalations. So forced exhalations to really bring that lung volume of oxygen down, and then followed by breath retention. Now, this, as you can see, has a learning curve. So we did do some prep with our participants, making sure that they understood how to do this. We checked in with them to make sure that they had the technique down. And that's also why we wanted to allow for multiple workouts during the week so that they could really get used to doing this. We really had some good success. Our participants responded really well to the training videos. I think videos are just a great way to have this available for them if they need to see a reminder or anything like that. So we were happy to be able to provide that. Now, with that, they recorded all of their oxygen. We got all of their oxygen numbers for each of those workouts for both the control and experimental groups to see if we were actually bringing down oxygen levels.
Workout.
And spoiler, like I said earlier, we did. So it did work. So blood oxygen decreased with breath hold technique, and it does mimic hypoxia. So the average in the control group was around 96-97% saturated, whereas the average in the experimental group was about 88. Now, I will say, unfortunately, and I'm going to put this across the blanket statement, this is a preliminary study. We started with 12 participants total, and unfortunately, with the logistics of the study, we only ended up with 5 completing the entire study. So that really, really hurts our numbers here. So we're taking what we can get, and we're really strategizing on how to improve our retention in future studies. So we had 2 people complete the control and 3 people complete the experimental. So with that being said, obviously our numbers are not super strong, but we're still excited with some of the trends that we're seeing. Interestingly, this is including all 5 of those participants. So we have 2 in the control, 3 in the experimental. This includes an outlier in the experimental. This participant did not do the breathwork technique very well. We checked in with them multiple times. They had trouble with that. And so even with her numbers being higher and not being able to bring her oxygen levels down, we still saw this difference. Taking out those numbers, there was a huge significant difference between these 2 groups. So we are hopeful that we can continue to mimic this in the future, is seeing this trend. And, our goal for one of our future studies is really to make sure that we can retain some participants. Now, we also saw a significant improvement in resting metabolic rate after 12 weeks of exercise. So these are our 2 participants over here in the control. These are our 3 in experimental, and there were significant changes in resting metabolic rate in all of those participants. So we were really excited to see that. We also saw significant improvements in upper body strength as measured by a push-up endurance test. Now, we did test strength endurance, not strength, total strength like a 1-rep max, which is something that we do want to look at in the future to see the difference. Now, one thing that is known with hypoxic training or even altitude training is because it improves that hypoxic inducing factor gene expression, and it also increases erythropoietin. This clearly is tied to more of an aerobic or endurance adaptation. So we did kind of want to test the workouts that we did were functional and more of an endurance strength training style versus focused on total strength, low repetitions. So we did want to also mimic that with our testing. So we used the push-up test and a squat test. We did not see significant changes here, but it was very close to being significant. Again, this is that outlier here. So if that person was not there, we definitely would have seen significance here. We were at a p-value of 0.07, but we did see significant improvements in upper body strength, which was really exciting. Again, here's where you can see that we also saw improvements in the control group. So they're getting a good workout, and what we need to do is figure out as we get more and more participants, if we can really see a huge difference in the control versus that experimental in the improvements. Now, when we look at body composition, we had a decreased average body fat percentage and waist circumference. Let me move my video out of the way here. So when we look at average body fat percentage loss, the average body fat percentage lost in the control group was 0.85%. So not even 1% body fat. In the experimental group, the average loss was 1.4%. Now, anyone in the health and fitness world, losing 1% body fat over 12 weeks is pretty good. So, changing your body composition is pretty difficult. And so this is exciting that we're seeing these trends of improved body fat composition or body fat loss with that hypoxic training. Now, when we look at waist circumference, interesting, our data I was a little interested by this because actually the control group, their waist circumference went up, which is not what I would have expected. Again, we're hoping for more numbers in the future. But we did see a reduction in waist by almost an inch with our experimental group, while the control group actually had an increase in waist circumference. Now, the reason these 2 factors or these variables are so important is body composition is a much better marker of overall health than body weight or overall body size. So looking at that body fat percentage is really important to us. Also, waist circumference on its own is tied to a variety of different disease progressions and risk of disease. So we really want to look at decreasing waist circumference regardless of weight change. So we weren't really concerned about weight change as much as we were with body fat percentage and circumference. All right. Now, what do we want to do in the future? What do we want to do with all this information? Basically, our big goal here is to take this preliminary data that we've accumulated. We're seeing some trends in the right direction. Again, this is the first study that we've done together as a group, and we're kind of getting our line of research kind of up and going. So we are hoping to increase the number of participants and confirm this study. Do that intermittent hypoxic breathing techniques, do they really confirm, can we really mimic? Everything that we've seen shows that it can. We just need more participants to really show that meaningfulness and that statistical significance. And we want to continue to look at body composition changes, even maybe explore the difference in say visceral body fat percentage versus subcutaneous. And we can measure that via a DEXA scan, which is what we used here. And that's also important in disease progression and disease risk. So we do want to look at that. Potentially body composition, maybe we're losing, more visceral versus subcutaneous. We're not sure. And that's something that we want to look into. And we also want to continue to go down that resting metabolic route. Is that one of the mechanisms for the improved body composition results? Or what is that driving factor that's improving the changes in body composition that we see with intermittent hypoxic training that's better in that experimental group versus if you don't do any hypoxic breathing techniques? And then eventually we do want to partner with a colleague at another institute and measure some of these factors. So can we use this breathing technique to get the same increase in transcription of the gene, that should actually say HIF1, hypoxic inducing factor? Can we get that same result from this hypoxic breathing technique that you get at altitude, and an increase in erythropoietin as well? So this would kind of indicate a long-term effect similar to as training in a hypoxic environment or at altitude. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any ideas for how we can improve our research or some things to look at, some markers, some variables, we're all ears. We're super excited about this line of research, and we're excited to work together. I'm personally excited to be working with an alum and also some colleagues at external institutes. So that's been really fun and a really great way to collaborate. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, and please let me know if you have any questions.